In this week's episode of the Red and Gold Report, we're going to be examining why the Chiefs lost in a last-second upset this Sunday against the Bengals, and we're going to be looking at all the recent Chiefs news. You know, the storyline for the Chiefs game on Sunday was a lot like going to a used car lot, like going to buy a Lexus but coming home with a Ford Taurus. Chiefs fans got the old bait and switch. The Chiefs started the game up 14-0. Mahomes was talking a lot of smack. The defense looked good. The offense scored touchdowns on 3 straight drives in the first half. That was the bait. But what was the switch? Well, the switch was that the Bengals started blowing up our defensive backs worse than a freak New Year's Eve fireworks accident. It all started with a 72-yard reception by Bengals rookie receiver Ja'Marr Chase. Chase actually ended up dicing the Chiefs defense for 266 yards of receiving. Yeah, the Chiefs allowed Chase to make history with the most receiving yards ever in a single game by a rookie receiver. The Chiefs offense sputtered in the second half behind an injured offensive line, but Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow kept lighting up the Chiefs D, ending the game with 446 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. So, with the Bengals with the ball in the last drive, the game was all tied up. They brought the ball down to the 1-yard line, and then, in some of the weirdest string of events possible, the refs called back-to-back penalties on the Chiefs, giving the Bengals chance after chance after chance to win the game. And ultimately, with time expiring, the Bengals kicked a field goal to end the Chiefs' 8-game winning streak. Yeah, the storyline of the game was the old bait and switch. And hey, as we get going, if you want weekly Chiefs news brought to you right here on the interwebs every single week, make sure you follow on Facebook and make sure you subscribe on YouTube to this channel. You know, after the storyline of the game, I always like to talk about the players of the game, you know, keep it positive, but I kind of can't this week. We have to start with the negatives because that's why we lost. And the Chiefs defensive backs were either still hungover from New Year's Eve or somebody switched their Gatorade for chamomile tea because, yeah, they were taking naps all game long. Corner Charvarius Ward got outmuscled for a long touchdown to Chase early. He got burnt near the sideline late in the fourth quarter. He got burnt again in the same drive for a 30-yarder, and he had a crippling penalty that gave Cincinnati a second chance at a 4th down with 50 seconds left in the game. Corner Rashad Fenton had a poor game as well. He had 2 costly pass interference calls, though I did disagree with one of those. He was also burned deep on a 39-yarder to start the 4th quarter. Safety Tyrann Mathieu looked more interested in not getting injured heading into a new contract than actually playing the game. He made no attempt to make a play on the 72-yard reception in his effort on the 4th quarter play when he allowed the Bengals touchdown that put them up was so poor that I think he should have been benched. To make matters worse, somehow the coaches snuck Dan Sorensen back at safety again, so of course he was torched on an ugly deep pass early in the 3rd quarter. Safety Juan Thornhill also struggled in run support, and he played too far off in coverage and gave up on chasing Ja'Marr Chase on a deep 3rd quarter pass. So yeah, the defensive backs had a game to forget, and their effort, it just wasn't there. The Chiefs linebackers weren't much better. I have loved Nick Bolton all season long, but he missed some tackles on Sunday. Anthony Hitchens was playing far too slow to matter, and Willie Gay, he didn't have a good game in coverage. He allowed 4 catches on only 4 targets for 94 yards and a score. Also, defensive end Frank Clark really struggled, registering only a 2.8% pass rush win rate against a poor offensive line. You get the idea. It was not the best day for the Chiefs D, and you know what? That's more than enough negatives for one episode. So turning to who played well. What were the positives for the Chiefs? Well, running back Darrell Williams, he had a great game. I love how he got upfield quickly on every snap, racking up a 6.3-yard average on 14 carries. 48 of his 88 yards came after contact. The only thing holding him back was a lack of commitment to the running game, but more on that in a minute. Mahomes also played a fantastic first half. I'll attribute the lack of plays in the second half by him to the fact that he was under so much pressure playing behind a seriously hobbled offensive line. But hey, he still ended up with a 74% completion rating and 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. I particularly loved his pitch pass in the 3rd quarter. Also, running back Derek Gore ended the game with 37 yards of rushing on only 3 carries. That's an awesome average. And we've got to mention Joe Thuney, who early in the game had to move from left guard to left tackle. Now, that is a tall task. You don't see that happen very often in the NFL, and he actually filled in just fine, not allowing a single sack. And finally, defensive tackle Chris Jones played well, ending the game with 2 sacks and a 10.5% pass rush win rate. I particularly loved how he was using his swim moves inside during the game. Okay, let's move on to a few insights that you may have missed during the game. First, we got to talk about the running game. I wonder, did you notice that during those 3 straight touchdown drives for the Chiefs in the first half, did you notice how well they were running the ball? Then did you notice how when they stopped running the ball in the second half, they also stopped scoring points? Not a coincidence, right? Kind of hard to miss this insight. Our running backs had 125 yards on only 17 carries for a 7.6 yard average. Seriously, when your running backs are averaging nearly 8 yards a carry, why would you stop running the ball? Particularly when Mahomes was being pressured behind a hurt offense line, and particularly when you needed to keep that red hot Bengals offense on the bench. How can we be missing the opportunity to just run the stinking ball? Another insight not to miss is the oddity of what's happening in the Chiefs' short yardage offense. Though not in the game this Sunday, the Chiefs offense assumes a default mode of utilizing undersized running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So instead of just running the ball down their opponents' throats this season, the Chiefs offense is having to find all sorts of interesting ways to manufacture short yardage conversions. So we're talking about that 3rd and 1, that 4th and 1. This was on full display Sunday. Twice, backup tight end Blake Bell, who actually was a quarterback for a time at Oklahoma, took snaps for quick runs on short yardage. Twice, running back Darrell Williams was handed the ball on short yardage, but it wasn't on traditional power sets. Both times it was from a shotgun formation alone with Mahomes in the backfield with a slightly delayed handoff. Not your standard run it at the opposition type of power play. And then fullback Michael Burton even got in on the action with a first down run late in the first quarter. And actually, real fun fact, Burton has the most first down runs of any fullback in the league this year. So an insight to watch is this. You got to watch in the playoffs how creative the Chiefs offensive coaches are getting to manufacture first downs on short yardage plays without a true power back. Another insight to watch is all about the offensive line's flexibility. Now on Sunday, starting left tackle Orlando Brown actually hurt his calf in pre-game warmup, so he was out. Now you would assume that the second string left tackle would come in, but not so fast. Instead, the Chiefs shuffled the offensive line. Right tackle Lucas Niang was flipped to left tackle, and Andrew Wiley came in for Niang at right tackle. Then Niang got hurt after 5 snaps. He was taken out of the game with that injury, and it looks like he is out for the year with a torn patella tendon, although that is not yet official. Again, you'd assume that the left tackle backup would come into the game, but not so fast. Instead, the Chiefs shuffled the line again. Left guard Joe Thuney moved to left tackle, and Allegretti came in at left guard. Offensive line injuries are just a part of the NFL. So the insight here is to watch how, instead of just plugging in whatever backup is next, the Chiefs are wisely staying flexible and shuffling multiple positions to bring in the next best offensive lineman. With those insights about the game out of the way, let's move on to recent Chiefs news. First up, linebacker coach Matt House has been hired as the defensive coordinator at LSU, but luckily he is going to be finishing out the season with the Chiefs. Also in recent Chiefs news, former Chiefs defensive end Jared Allen is one of the 15 finalists to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. I still remember sitting in the war room at Arrowhead when he was drafted by the Chiefs in 2004, and I'm wishing Jared all the best in his quest to be a Hall of Famer. Also in recent Chiefs news, this past Sunday, every key player who missed the previous week on the COVID list did return to the lineup, which is a real positive. In hilarious news, last week, Coach Andy Reid was asked what his New Year's resolution was, and his response was pure gold. He said, I was going to say that I was going to eat less, but then I'd feel like Pinocchio. You gotta love Big Red. In other Chiefs news, this upcoming game against Denver is going to be the final game of the season. Now, remember, the season was extended from 16 to 17 games because, money. Now, we should obviously beat the Orange Crush Ponies, but it might not matter very much in the grand scheme of things. Due to this last week's loss against the Bengals, the Chiefs are now 11-5, and so are the Titans. Both of them were vying for that top spot in the AFC, but because the Chiefs lost to the Titans earlier in the season, Tennessee actually has a tiebreaker in the AFC standings. So to gain full home field advantage, the Chiefs don't just have to beat the Broncos. No, they have to beat the Broncos, and then the Titans have to lose to the Texans, which if you've been watching the Texans play football, yeah, that's a waste of your hard-earned hope, right? And finally, in Chiefs news, the upcoming game has actually been flipped to a Saturday afternoon game, so if you tune in to watch the Broncos versus the Chiefs on Sunday, you're going to be a day too late. Well, that about does it for the Red and Gold Report. Make sure that you like and follow this channel on Facebook and subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and go Chiefs!